going to start with the errors in forecasting. Okay, so we discussed earlier, or we discussed yesterday, that in transportation planning you are looking towards future. Okay, everything is done for future scenarios. Okay, and future scenarios are unverifiable until they happen. Okay, only God has a full knowledge of future. We can only predict and guess and estimate, and until that thing happens, it is unknown. And since you are doing the planning, so you cannot wait for that thing to happen to execute your plan. You have to plan in advance and you have to start the implementation of your plan. In doing the planning, they are relying on historical data, what happened in the past. They have some equations on the basis of the historical data. They have developed some equations. Sometimes the trend of the data is enough to tell you that this will happen in future. Okay, or this is supposed to happen in future. For example, let's say I plot traffic of each year and I find the line to go like this. Okay, so let's say I have the data from this year to this year, and when I plot it, I get a line like this. Okay, and I'm doing planning for this year in the future. Let's say on the x-axis you have the years. Okay, so I have data up till here. Okay, and I'm trying to do planning for the next 20 years, which is here, so I can just extend the line with the current trend in the future. Okay, so I now I have the value for the future as well. So sometimes historical data may become sufficient if it has less variation. So you can see here it's almost a straight line. Okay, so in this sort of a situation, extending the line is not a problem, right? So in some cases you may have something like this. Or if the data is more complicated, then we develop a model meaning an equation. Okay, so you have an equation for the data, and then you put the values for future in the data, and you get what will happen. So you have traffic on the basis of income or population or whatever. I will show you some few data items in the coming slide. So you have these things and you put their values in the equation and you get the value for the future for traffic. Okay, so this is another way of forecasting for future. Or you can have comparable studies. So you look at something similar which has already happened, maybe in the same jurisdiction, in the same area, or maybe in a similar area. So I think I gave the example of metro yesterday. So if you are starting metro in Bahrain and you are trying to estimate how many people will shift from their cars to metro, then you may look at the metro being started in other countries. For example, in Dubai, you may look for their data and you may see that how many people actually shifted from their cars to metro there. Okay, and Dubai is very close to Bahrain and it is part of the GCC. It's an Arab country and so on and so forth. So there are many similarities between these countries, and you will be justified in saying that something like this happened in Dubai, so we are expecting something similar in Bahrain as well. Okay, so you can rely on comparable studies as well if you find it. Obviously, now metro service already started in Dubai, so you can compare with it. If it hadn't been there, then you may find it very difficult to find a comparable study. Okay, so comparable studies may or may not be available, or in some cases, or in every case, whether you are relying on historical data or model prediction or comparable studies, you are making assumptions. You are making assumptions. Okay, in all these things you are making assumptions. So historical data, you are assuming the line will follow the same path. In the model, you are assuming that the data I put in the equation is the same for the future. Comparable studies, you are assuming that the people behavior in Dubai is same as people behavior in travelers behavior in Bahrain and so on and so forth. So there are assumptions involved in all of them, and sometimes you make extra assumptions as well. Okay, assumptions related to the behavior of the people, assumptions related to the financial situation, the economic development, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there are assumptions involved. And assumption is again something which you are doing as per your own judgment, right? I'm assuming something. Okay, so like you must have assumed when you took this course that you are getting an A. Okay, so this is only time will tell whether it's a true assumption or a false assumption. Okay, but it's an assumption, and you again you it's unverifiable. You do not know until you get the grade. Okay, and people usually have, most of the people get shocked when they get their final grades. So let's see. So each of these things has some internal errors. All these things have internal errors. And errors or sources of errors, you can say, like they have some variation, okay, or they have some chances that they can be wrong. Okay, for example, historical data, you may have made some mistake in collecting the historical data. Okay, for example, you go in the field and you are collecting traffic count. So there's a chance that you may have missed some vehicles, right? Okay, you did not took the count at the correct time. Okay, so you may have made a mistake in counting passenger cars or heavy vehicles or calculating the percentage. Okay, in model predictions, you may have made a mistake in developing the equation, or even if you have developed the equation accurately, there are exceptions to every equation, every model. Every model and every equation has some exceptions, or what they call as outliers. Okay, so every equation has an outlier. Okay, what is an outlier? And even the historical data has an outlier as well. So what is an outlier? That the thing which is not following the trend of the general trend of the data. Okay, or a value which is not coming even close to the equation. So it happens. Okay, exceptions are everywhere. Same thing with comparable studies. You may be comparing with someone or some area which has some differences with your people and with your area. Okay, or you may be comparing with a study in your own area, but it was maybe a while ago, and now the behavior of the people has changed. Okay, so even though you are comparing, but you may be ignoring some differences which may which may degrade the accuracy of your forecast. Okay, and assumptions, as I said, you are using your own judgment, and human beings are bound to make mistakes. This is how we are created. So everything, all these sources on which transportation planners are relying, they have internal errors. Okay, all of them have internal errors. Nothing is perfect. Like I said, I think I told you last time as well. The entities in the world which are perfect are the God and the Prophet ﷺ. Other than that, everything is imperfect. So there is no such thing as 100% accuracy. Okay, there is no such thing as 100% accuracy. Okay, for future forecasting. Now it may happen that in the final forecast, you are relying on many of these things, not one, but many of these things. So you're relying on historical data, and for some things you have used your assumptions as well, and so on and so forth. So while you are combining different sources in your system, you are also combining their errors as well. Okay. So if you are only relying on historical data, then the only source of error was the data. Now you have made some assumptions as well, and your assumptions may have some error as well. So now you are combining the errors from historical data as well as your own assumption, and then you are using an equation as well. So you are combining a third source of error as well. So while you are dealing with different sources of data, you are also combining different sources of error as well. Okay, and these sources of error will create more variability in your data. So there are more chances that the future forecast is away from the actual result. Okay, so there are two famous quotes which are written here on the basis of that. Okay, so now you understand that there are errors, and since we are using different sources of data, so errors are combined and you increase the accuracy in your data. So the famous quotes are all models are wrong, all models are wrong. So inherently by default all equations and models are wrong, but some are useful. Okay, some are useful. So you have to, when I say all of them are of this type, but very few are of the other type. So you have to look for the other type more carefully, right? You have to look for the other type more carefully. For example, I give you a list of names and I say all of them are boys except few are girls. Okay, so now you will look at the list more carefully to look for the girls' names. Okay, so some are useful, meaning now look carefully in all the data sources, in all the models you have, look for the one which is useful to you. Okay, now you can see they did not say some are accurate, okay, or some are correct. What is the antonym of wrong? What is the opposite of wrong? Correct, right? So right or correct or accurate, but they do not use that terminology. They are saying some are useful. Okay, so their predictions can still be wrong, but they are useful to you. They are sufficiently useful, like they are serving your purpose. Okay, some models are completely wrong, but some are giving you close enough answers, or some are making enough sense to you to proceed. Okay, for example, in the last semester, one of my groups were calculating trips from schools. Okay, so they were using different models and equations. Okay, and one of those models was giving trips in millions of trips from one school. So obviously this is completely wrong, right? And that there are other models which were giving trips in thousands, okay, like 2000 and so on and so forth. So obviously million trips from one school is not possible. 2000 makes more sense. Okay, so this is what we are saying here, that some are useful. Okay, so 2000 may still not be the correct answer, may still not be 100% accurate, but it is still making sense. Okay, so you have to look among all the models, you have to look at them critically. This is what they are saying. You have to look at them critically, that which ones we can use. Okay, which one we can use. And again, keep in mind they may not be 100% accurate. And the second quote is planning is as much as an art as it is science. Okay, so transportation planning or any sort of planning is partially art as well as science. So science is you apply the knowledge, but art is like I told you. Okay, like I just gave the example that you need to, when you apply the model, you get the result. Now you need to look at it critically. Is it making sense? Okay, is it possible? Okay, does it fit into your mind? Okay, so art is something when you are using your innovation, when you are using your mind to judge something. Okay, when you are using your intellect to judge something. Okay, so in planning you have to use that as well. So you are using an equation, the equation gives you the traffic on this highway will be 200,000. So 200,000 is not the correct response. You have to judge it, and then you can discard the answer if it is not making sense. Okay, so these two quotes tell you that you have to look at the models and the data critically. Okay, and then you may choose the most useful one. Okay, and this is what they are saying. You have to weigh and scrutinize. Okay, so this is thinking critically. Okay, what are the potential sources of errors, and then you apply the judgment. So this is the art. Okay, applying the judgment is the art aspect. Okay, to apply the engineering judgment to the plans and recommendations. Okay, which plans and recommendations make sense and which doesn't make sense. Okay, so you have to see, when you are looking at the models, you have to see what are the possible sources of errors in the data. Okay, and if something is not making sense, you have to discard it, and so on. Okay, now we come towards the main part of this chapter, which is travel demand forecasting model. Okay, or in short, that is also known as travel demand model. Okay, TDM. Okay, travel demand forecasting model, or TDM, which is travel demand model. Okay, in a travel demand model, travel demand forecasting model, we have 4 steps. Okay, so model in the sense that it is a process. You apply this process to find out the future trips on different highways. This is the outcome of this model, to find out the future trips on the highways. Okay, so to find out that, we go through 4 steps. Okay, so the first step is, okay, so the first step is trip generation. Okay, so in trip generation, you are looking to estimate the future trips generated based on the type of land use, the size of the land use, and travel patterns. Okay, so for the area in which you are estimating the trips, okay, so I want to know how many trips will come out of this area. Okay, so for that area, you must find out the land use. Okay, land use meaning what type of activity is happening in that land. Size of the land use, meaning the size of that activity. Okay, size meaning the extent of that activity. For example, if it is a residential land use, then how many houses do you have? If it is commercial land use, then how many shops do you have? If it is educational, then how many schools, and in each school how many students you have? Okay, so that is the size of the land use. So the parameter of the size will change according to the type of land use and the travel patterns. Okay, so from this area, what are the existing travel patterns? Okay, so you find out these things. On the basis of that, you find out how many trips are expected to generate from this area. Okay, so trip generation is to find out the number of trips generated from each area. Then these trips are distributed among different traffic analysis zones. They call them TAZ. TAZ stands for traffic analysis zones. Okay, so you calculated how many trips are coming from one area, and then you estimate out of these trips or how these trips will be distributed to other zones or other areas. Okay, so trips from one area are going to which other areas? This is what we call as trip distribution. Okay, and obviously you are doing it for all areas in your region. Okay, like I gave you the explanation about systems planning or long range planning, long range transportation planning. So you are considering the whole state or the whole metropolitan area and so on and so forth. So within your area you have different zones. Okay, they call them traffic analysis zones. So from each zone you are calculate how many trips are generated, and then to which other traffic analysis zones these trips are going. Okay, and then you these trips may be made for different categories or different purposes. Okay, for example, you may have home to work trips, you may have home to education or school trips, you may have home to shopping trips, okay, home to picnic or home to recreation trips. Okay, so trips can be of different types, and people go to different zones according to their purpose, right? My office is in zone 1, so I will go to zone 1 and so on and so forth. So trip distribution means that you assign the destination of the trip in terms of the zone in which it will end up. Okay, then mode choice means that now you are finding out the preference of the people in how they would like to make this trip. The preference of the people in as to how they want to make the trip. Okay, what transportation mode they would choose to make this trip. If they want to go from zone 1 to zone 3, how they want to go by this trip. Okay, so will they use their personal vehicle or public transport? Will they carpool with someone? Will they use a bicycle? Will they walk? And so on. Okay, so the total trips which are coming from one zone to the other zone, then you divide them into different modes. Okay, then you divide these trips into different modes. Okay, so modes means different choices you have for transportation. Okay, then we have the last stage, which is trip assignment. Okay, In trip assignment, you are basically trying to identify the routes which will be taken by the travelers in order to make their trips. Okay, so you have already found from where the traveler is coming in trip generation. You already found where the traveler is going in trip distribution. You already found how will he be going there in terms of mode choice, and then you find out which route he will take. Okay, and then you have to consider the capacity of the network as well. Okay, and then you have to also find out the impact on the transportation network. Okay, so capacity, if the system is over capacity, then obviously no more trips should be assigned to that route. If you have a highway, okay, which is already over capacity, then no more extra trips should be assigned to that highway, right? And then you have to look at the impact of the network as well. So if they are not assigned on this highway, then what are the other options? What are the other options? Okay, so in trip assignment, you have to look at the whole transportation network, the available transportation network, and you try to assign the trips which are possible. Okay, which are possible. So trip generation, find out how many trips. Trip distribution, you find out where they are going. Trip mode choice, you find out how they will be going, by which mode they will be going. And trip assignment, you find out which route they will be taking. Okay, so the final part will give you how many trips you have on each highway. Okay. So I've already gave you the concept of TAZs, traffic analysis zones. This is the one unit of the area for which you are doing the planning. So you have the whole study area. You divide the study area into these smaller zones, and your planning will be carried out for each zone. Okay, the TDM model will be applied then to each zone. Okay, now for each zone or for the whole study area, you have to find out several inventories and population demographics. Okay, inventories meaning the record. Okay, I think I used this term when we were discussing parking studies as well. Inventory means the record of the existing items. So the record, whatever is existing in the system, whatever is existing in the zone or the area, and population demographics. Okay, demographics is something related to population. Okay, so to apply the planning model, to apply the TDM model, you have to find out certain inventories. Okay, you have to find out or you have to get the information about the things which are already existing in that area, and you have to find out several parameters related to the population of the area. Okay, and some of them are listed here. They are not complete. This list is not complete. It is just to give you an idea. Okay, for example, population. So population is part of population demographics. Okay, population means how many people are living in that area. Okay, land use, type of development you have in that area. Okay, so we already know the type of land uses. Can you give me some examples of land use? I already gave you, I think, a couple of examples. Can you give me more examples of land use? Yes.
Commercial areas.
Commercial, okay. Go ahead. What else?
Industrial.
Industrial, yes. Good, good. Okay, can you name an area in Bahrain which has industrial land use? Which area in Bahrain has industries?
Area.
Which?
Yes.
Sorry, what did you say? The name of the area is?
Head area.
Head, yeah, good, good. So we have industrial and okay, what else? What else? What other land use we can have?
Residential.
Residential, yeah. Okay, and we can have educational as well, and so on and so forth. So you have that, you get the idea. Okay, so find out the type of land use. This is related to the inventory of the area. Okay, what type of development you have in that area, economic activities happening in that area. Okay, this is related to the land use. Okay, but obviously if you say, for example, commercial land use, now within commercial, then you can have multiple activities. Within commercial, you may have multiple activities. Okay, so you may office is a commercial activity, medical is economic activity, education is economic activity, and so on and so forth. So what type of activity is exactly happening in that area? Okay, so this is a more detail of land use. Okay, so this is again part of inventory. Transportation systems in that area. What are the different transportation systems in that area? Okay, so road network, what roads you have in that area? Do you have any transit, meaning public transport routes in that area? Do you have a bus route or metro route or train or whatever in that area? Multi-use paths. Multi-use paths are what? Multi-use paths are paths or road spaces which can be utilized by multiple users. Okay, so spaces in which you are allowing multiple users, such as passenger cars and buses, spaces in which you allow passenger cars and buses. So, for example, all roads in Bahrain, most of the roads in Bahrain are multiple use, okay, multi-use paths, because there is no separate path for buses. Okay, similarly, you may have multi-use paths for bicycles and pedestrians, right? Bicycles and pedestrians. Or you may have a road space where or the shoulder where bicycle is also allowed, or pedestrian movement is also allowed. So they become multi-use paths. So anyways, this is part of the inventory of the area. Then the travel patterns. People from this area usually go where? People from this area usually go where? What is? So everything which I discussed in the previous slide, the 4 steps, they come under travel pattern. So what is the existing travel pattern in that area? So what is the existing number of trips coming out of this area? What is their destination? Okay, trip distribution. Okay, what modes they are using right now, and which routes they are taking right now. So this is all part of travel pattern. Okay, so you find out the 4 things which I mentioned as the 4 steps of the transportation demand model, and that will be known as the travel pattern. Okay, so obviously there are people living in that area, so you must have some travel patterns as well. Then laws and ordinances. Okay, so travel pattern again is something related to the population. Okay, something related to population, how the people like to travel from that area. So this is something related to population demographics. Then laws and ordinances. Okay, what are the usual speed limits, any zoning? So again, these are just examples. They are, then the licensing laws and the laws regarding vehicle registration and so on and so forth. Everything is part of it. So zoning restrictions, for example, maybe in this particular area, a certain activity is banned, or for example, if you are near the airport, okay, then near the airport, certain activities should not happen. Okay, hospitals should not be very close to the airport, schools should not be very close to the airport, and so on and so forth. So these are known as zoning restrictions. So in this particular zone, this activity can happen, this activity cannot happen. These are known as zoning restrictions. Okay, then what are the financial resources from where the finance will come for your planning, for your transportation improvement or development? Will it come from a ministry? In some cases, like in Pakistan, World Bank and Asian Development Bank, these international organizations also contribute. Okay, now we have a major project being developed with the collaboration of China. So the most of the money is coming from China. Okay, so and this is real money. Okay, so financial resources, who is paying? Okay, is it coming from taxes? Is it coming from local government or central government? Like I told you yesterday, in some countries you have 2 levels of government. One is a central ministry, and then for each governorate or for each province you have the local departments or the local organizations. Okay, so who is responsible for arranging the money? The central government, the local organization, or any other private party or some other country or so on. Okay, even for I think the airport in Bahrain, I heard there was some financial assistance being provided from the other countries as well, from other Gulf countries as well, because obviously this is important for them as well. Once this airport is built, and it is built now, it is operational, alhamdulillah. So they have their own benefits. Okay, so they invest as well. Okay, no problem for them. Community values. Okay, so again, this is something related to community values, is something related to population demographics, how the people think. Let us say this, how the people think, or what do they think, or how do they behave in that area. Okay, so for example, up till a couple of years ago, women were not able to drive in Saudi Arabia. So these were part of the community values. Now the values are changing. Okay, so it was not because of something technical, right? Women drive, in Dubai, in Bahrain, and they are driving for so many years. But in Saudi Arabia, it was not allowed. So this was part of community values. This was not something technical. Okay, so if there is something peculiar about the values of the community in that area, you must know about them. Okay, for example, in some countries, in buses, in public transportation system, like if you go to European countries or the Western countries, women do not have a separate section in the bus. But if you come to Pakistan, you will see a separate section in the bus for women. Okay, so this is part of the community values. Okay, it has nothing to do with the capacity or anything technical. This is part of the community values. So if there is something like that in your area, in your country, you must know about it. Okay. So this is just the idea, just to give you the idea about the information you would need for planning. Okay. All the data which I mentioned, or any data which you are collecting for planning, it is collected on periodic basis. Okay, I think I showed you the cycle of the transportation planning process. So it was, you can see it, if I go back, you can see it's cyclic. Okay, so once you implement the project, you go back and you start from the first step again, and in doing so, you are taking the data from the present scenario, and then you start the planning again. Okay, so this is the whole process. Okay, it's a cyclic process, and so the data which I have mentioned here, this data is not collected one time. It has to be updated after every few years. Okay, and this data becomes the data of the existing conditions, becomes the base condition. Okay, whatever you are collecting for now, it becomes the base condition. They call it the base condition. Base condition means what do we have right now. Okay, that becomes the base condition. So base conditions need to be updated after every few years. Okay, again, it doesn't mean that you are planning for 20 years, so you will update after 20 years. No, even after 4, 5 years, 6 years, you can update the data, or you should update the data. Okay, so sometimes your future plans may change. Okay. Now, how to make these TAZs, or traffic analysis zones? It depends upon what type of area you have. If you have an urban area, in an urban area, we prefer to make smaller zones, because in urban area, traffic and population is much higher. Okay, so even smaller zones will give you significant values. Okay, and in urban areas, the activities are happening, many different activities are happening. Okay, so if you make smaller zones, then you have more chances of focusing on one particular activity. Okay, but in rural areas, if you make smaller zones, then you will have insignificant trips from each zone. Okay, so one zone having 10 trips or 20 trips doesn't make any sense. Okay, so in rural areas, we make usually larger zones. Okay, larger in terms of space. Okay, larger in terms of space. So in rural and suburban areas, you make larger areas because the trips are short, the activities are very limited. Okay, so we make larger areas in terms of space. Now, urban areas, it is the other way around. So we make smaller zones, because still from smaller zones we have significant number of trips and different activities. Okay. So even the smaller zones in urban areas may give you more trips than the large zones in the rural areas. Okay, it can still happen. Okay, because in urban areas more commercial and more employment activities are happening and so on. So now you can see here, this is a picture which you can see on the side. Let me. Okay, so now it is bigger. So you can see here, first of all, how many zones you can see here. So you can, these lines are basically showing the zones, okay. Not the zones, but the areas, okay, the areas, the main areas. So this is, okay, you can see this line here, this line here, this line here, and this line here. So basically 1 2 3 4 5, okay, at least there are 5 different areas here. Why I'm saying different? Because you can see this, these small divisions, or these small particles, okay, these smaller units. Let me, so for example, this is one unit, this is one zone, okay. So you can see in this area, in this part of the figure, the zones are smaller in size. In this part of the figure, they are bigger in size, okay. So these are two different areas which are having two different sizes of the zones. And similarly, if you come here, the zones are much bigger than any part of this area, okay. So this means this is a totally different area, okay. And similarly here, they are of different size as well. So since the zones are smaller here, I would call this one as an urban area, right? Since the zones are bigger here, so I will call this one as a rural area, okay. This is what I can assume from the zones, okay. Obviously, if you made this figure yourself, you will know for sure, okay. Another thing which you can see here is there is a river. This is a river which is flowing in this part of the area, okay. So there are rural areas which are around a river in this part, okay. And then the others, this one is an urban area, okay. This one may be a suburban area, these two may be suburban areas, okay. So zones are slightly bigger. They are not as big as the rural area, but they are slightly bigger, okay. So this is showing you the mix of urban, suburban, and rural areas, and how the zones are being divided, okay. Okay. Sometimes we are required to perform traffic impact analysis. Okay. What is the traffic impact analysis? When you are developing any land, developing the land means you are constructing something on the land, okay. Then you need to find out what will be the impact of that development on the road network. So in traffic impact analysis, the main focus or the main objective is to find out the impact of the development, the land development, on the surrounding road network, okay. So they are required when the land is developed, and they are like smaller scale planning studies, okay. They are smaller in scale, but they follow all the steps which I mentioned for the travel demand model, okay. The 4 steps, they need to be followed even in traffic impact analysis as well. So traffic impact analysis are like smaller scale planning studies. Why smaller scale? Because you are focusing on one particular development site, okay. Traffic impact analysis can be limited to a few intersections, or it may extend up to the whole city, okay. And it will depend upon the type of development you are doing, okay. For example, if you are doing if you are constructing an airport, okay, then the impact of the airport will be to a larger area, okay, because people from the whole city will come towards the airport, okay. If you are developing just a shopping mall, then shopping mall may only influence the areas which are around the shopping mall, okay. So then it will be limited. So how much area should be covered in traffic impact analysis depends upon the type and the size of the development, okay. Then we have obviously shopping malls can be smaller and bigger. So smaller shopping malls will have less area impact, and bigger shopping malls will have more will have impact on a wider area, and so on and so forth, okay. So it depends. So like they have given us the example here, if you are opening a new grocery store or a big box, it's a sort of a chain, big box retail store, So these stores may require a larger scale impact analysis as compared to a gas station or a restaurant. Okay, isolated restaurant. So obviously, if you are opening a whole food court, then it will have more impact, right? So the impact will be to a larger area. So traffic impact analysis will be done to a larger area. But if you are talking about one restaurant or one gas station, then traffic impact analysis will be for a smaller area. But if you are talking about a grocery store, then grocery store may be offering something unique. For example, they have mentioned here Big Box. So Big Box is a chain of retail stores. So it's very famous, I think, in USA. And if you are opening something like this, then it will impact a larger area. So then you have to do the impact analysis for a larger area. Okay. The development which you are doing, it may be according to the current zoning and the land use. So whenever we use the word zoning, we are basically referring to the land use of the area. The land use of the area. Zoning basically refers to the land use of the area. So maybe you are developing something which is according to the current land use of the area. Okay, so the current land use is commercially and developing something commercial. The current land use is residential and you are developing something which will be a multi-story housing complex. Okay, so this is the current land use, or it can change the land use in future. Your development may require a change in zoning for future. Okay, so obviously now let's say it's a commercial or let's say it's a residential area, but now you are allowing for future big retail store in that area as well, or a big grocery store in that area as well. Okay, so in that case you have to keep in mind that the current travel pattern will completely change when this happens. Okay, so you have to keep this in mind. After the impact analysis, the developer is required to mitigate the impact. So if your development has any adverse effects on the road network, then it is the responsibility of the developer, the person who is developing that site, not the government. Okay, not the government. Maybe in some cases the government is developing the site, but in most of the cases it will be a private developer. So for example, like if you take this grocery store, retail store, gas station, restaurant, these are developed by who? These are constructed by private owners. So if these things are having an impact or adverse impact on the road network, then they are supposed to pay and implement any mitigation measures on the road network to control the impacts or to reduce the effects. So their retail store will cause more congestion on the road. It will cause more delay. So he has to come up with the measures on how to reduce the delay and make it, as the previous case. And he has to come up with the idea. He has to pay for the construction, and he has to, do them what do you call the development as well. He will do the development himself. Okay, like he will be responsible. The government may help him, but he will be responsible. Now, why should he do that? A development may come, okay, I will do construction on my land. I don't care what happens on the road network. In that case, the controlling agency will not approve anything which he requires for his project. Okay, for example, he requires zoning to be changed in the area because he is constructing something commercial in a residential area, so the zoning request will not be approved. He needs any special equipment on the site, he needs any special vehicles on the site, he will be not given the permit. The site plan may not be approved. The access to the driveway, the driveway to the site may not be given. Okay, and any so in addition to these things, the developer may change the request to the road network as well, that I'm constructing this thing and I should be given permission to make these changes to the road network. Okay, and in some cases the government may ask him to pay a fee. Okay, so these are the things related to the controlling agency, whoever the controlling agency is, maybe Ministry of Works in Bahrain or whatever, Ministry of Municipality Affairs or whatever. So these agencies are controlling the development from these aspects. So they are providing permissions, they are approving requests, they are giving them the permission to make any changes to the road network, and they are taking some fee from there as well. Okay, usually the development happens within a 1 mile radius from the project. Okay, usually impact analysis is done within a 1 mile radius from the project. So if your project is happening, let's say at this point, okay, so you draw a circle of 1 mile around the development, and you see which roads are under this circle or within this circle, and you do the traffic impact analysis for this one. This is usual. Okay, obviously I told you this can go bigger or smaller depending upon the type of development. So you, for this road network which you have selected for impact analysis, you will see the impact on the capacity of these networks on the, so the traffic which is generated from the development, will it exceed the capacity or not? Okay, usually it is done for isolated developments. So traffic impact analysis is done for each development separately. Okay, in some areas you may have found, even in Bahrain, you will find areas where 2-3 projects are started together. For example, in Saar area, the Kingdom Mall and Al Haram Mall and these things, they started together. Okay, well, I think they did not start completely, but they were constructed in the same time period. So traditionally, for each development, even if they are very close to each other, traffic impact analysis is done separately. Traditionally, this is the usual way of doing the things. But since we have now planning softwares, okay, if you go online, they are like gaming softwares. Okay, these planning software, transportation and urban planning softwares are now like gaming software, like PUBG and these things. Okay, so you can build a whole city. Okay, and you can see the impacts on traffic and so on and so forth. Okay, I forgot the name of so few softwares, but they are there. Okay, I think one of them is Sumo. Let me just give you one name here. Okay, so this is sort of a planning software where, so since you have these softwares, you don't have to rely on individual data. You can combine the data from different projects into one thing. Okay. Do we have the time? We don't have the time. Okay, so I'm going for the attendance now.